This is the Detroit Pistons dancing usher. My name is Shannon. And when I'm not at the Palace, I'm listening to Detroit Sports Podcast. Log in, listen in, have some fun with us. Love this group. Love the station.
All I want to know if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready?
All day, every day.
Good morning, my neighbors!
That's why these two guys here, these are the men I want as my friends. They're the new blood.
Doc and Jock are here and ready to deliver another great hour of Detroit sports content. Welcome to episode 64 of the Doc and Jock program on the Detroit Sports Podcast. Joining me is my co-host, Adam the Jock Strozinski.
I hate you.
I am the Doc, John Macaroon.
I'm the man. Woo!
What's up, cuz?
It was a dramatic weekend filled with, well, at least 2 of 3 football teams playing some actual good football. One of these teams is a complete disgrace. We're going to get into this. Let's talk about it.
Whatever do you mean? I mean, cuz you're coming off of another classic rivalry game. Michigan State dropped the hammer on Michigan, and
It's more like an anvil.
and the Cardiac Cats took the game in London. We beat the Falcons on a last-minute field goal, and very unusual that a penalty actually helped the Lions. And I don't know, something's in the air. Is this, and I'm hesitant to say, is this a team of destiny? Our Detroit Lions. I see you rocking the Lions cap. I know you're fully excited. And
I'm aroused right now. Fully aroused.
Oh my goodness. Cuz, let's jump right into it. Let's talk about the Lions. We have a great podcast lined up for everybody. Stay tuned. We got a lot to get to. Cuz the Lions game on Sunday was really, really surprising in that they started off versus Atlanta super slow on defense. I'm talking about making bad choices. I'm talking about giving up key plays, and you end up at halftime down 21-0. And everyone's like, oh, everyone was tweeting out, the Lions are still on Eastern time. And it was just really a tough watch in the first half because of the Lions' offensive struggles. But then halftime kicks in. It's quite evident that Jim Caldwell is able to make significant adjustments at the half. And the Lions played much better. Matthew Stafford connected with his favorite target, Golden Tate, and Atlanta really did their best job of throwing this game away. They could have made numerous choices to have a different outcome. I mean, on their last drive, they passed the ball, stopped the clock. We get the ball back, they take penalties. When Jim Caldwell makes his big mistake on third down, they take a penalty to save us. So we got a lot to tackle in this game. But to start off, we won the football game. We are right now going into the bye week, 6-2, first place in the North Division. And we sat here in the same spot last year and we collapsed. So I'm looking forward to getting your opinion on a lot of different issues with these Lions. But overall, your impression of the game last Sunday.
I think it was totally shocking, just jaw-dropping the way they came back and won. Completely different team that second half as opposed to that first half. That second half, they were getting sliced and diced any way you wanted to cut it, and they couldn't seem to move the ball. They come back that second half. Jim Caldwell is doing something that his predecessor could not do, and that was make changes at the half and come out and get victories. He flipped the script completely. This team came out like a team possessed in the second half, put points up, totally stymied the Falcons. I know the Falcons shot themselves in the foot a few times, but totally stymied them and was able to get a victory. There should have been probably a penalty flag thrown on that Golden Tate 2-point conversion. After going back and watching the replay 3 or 4 times, he was grabbed and he was held, and there should have been a flag thrown. They were able to overcome that penalty and still get the victory. This is something that you haven't been able to say about this team. This is a totally different team. Jim Caldwell has them believing in themselves, and I think you see it on the field. It's amazing the way that they basically gave the Falcons that first half of the game and then just came back and took it right back from them. It was very, very impressive.
Something that we don't see too often is a player who makes a key mistake early, stepping up in the game and helping the Lions win. Theo Riddick had a key drop in the second quarter, but made up for it in the fourth. My God, Atlanta had no answers for Theo Riddick, and there was a lot of talk about him in the preseason. There's Theo Riddick packages. Look out for Theo Riddick. You and I kind of sat here and chuckled like, where's this guy going to fit on the field? You got Joique Bell, you got Reggie Bush, and how is Theo Riddick going to play into things? And in the last 2 weeks, you've seen how capable this guy is of being a playmaker. And with Calvin Johnson out, with the significant injuries to the tight ends, you need players to step up. Theo Riddick stepped up, helped Matthew Stafford, and helped captivate significant offensive drives for the Lions. It was great to see.
You know what would be interesting to see? It'd be nice to see them with their full complement of players and what they're able to do. If you were able to get a Joique Bell, a Reggie Bush, a Theo Riddick, and a Calvin Johnson all on the field at the same time, and really see what kind of packages you could put out there and how you could maybe run up the score here. It'd be really nice to see because Theo Riddick looks amazing. Coming into the season, they talked about him being possibly the Darren Sproles of this team, and he really looks like it. He is probably the best catching running back that you have on this team. Him coming out of the backfield and rolling out into the flats, receiving the ball, and then moving the ball up the field is amazing at times. That one catch that he had to help advance the chains basically 12 yards down the field, he reached out and almost lunged his body out there to grab it with his fingertips, haul it in, and then he just sat there and just kept moving down the field until he got tackled. It was nice to see. This is something that is interesting to see from this Lions team because we haven't had a player like this in quite a long time. Somebody who can basically either A, run the ball if you need him to. He hasn't run it with a lot of success, but he can run the ball. And a player who can come out of your backfield and catch the ball. And he's done that with a lot of success. So I think he's a very nice complement to a power back like Joique Bell, a edge rusher like Reggie Bush, and then you mix him in with this complement of receivers with Calvin Johnson, who's missed the last couple games, Golden Tate, who's basically been Matt Stafford's go-to guy, and you got an emerging, I don't want to say star, but you have an emerging player with Corey Fuller right now, who has done a lot of great things to help this team out, especially since they've been so beleaguered with injuries.
Now, I want to ask you this. We've watched the last 2 weeks, the Lions come back versus the Saints and versus the Falcons. We've done this without our number one wide receiver, Calvin Johnson, who is likely to return after the bye week. But now you've seen that Golden Tate can be a significant deep threat. He's able to get behind the coverage, and he's able to make big plays. And so on Twitter, I kind of threw out an idea, and I'm not sure, I'm interested to get your opinion. I'm not sure what to think about it. Once Calvin Johnson returns, do you think now, with his status, he returns as the number one receiver? Because let's look at it like this. Golden Tate is a guy that is now in his prime. I'm not saying that Calvin Johnson is not a significant MVP caliber player. Right now, he's injury prone. He's likely to draw the double teams, and he's likely to draw the opponent's best cover guy. So what I'm thinking is, once Calvin comes back, he gets less targets than Golden Tate. I'm not saying that you're not going to have packages for Calvin Johnson. I'm not saying that you're not going to include him in the offense. You have to. It's Calvin Johnson. But I'm thinking that maybe Golden Tate moves into that number one spot and gets more plays targeted towards him because he has the ability to get open. He has the ability to break tackles, whereas I'm not sure right now Calvin Johnson is maybe starting to look like he's on the downside of his career. And it's going to be interesting to see what he looks like when he comes back. But do you give Golden Tate more touches, more targets than Calvin when Calvin Johnson comes back?
You know what? I think what a good offensive coordinator does is he lets whatever that defense is doing dictate his game plan. Because now you've got two weapons. You've got a guy who can stretch the field, and you've got a guy who you can throw it underneath to, and who will pick up yards and basically elongate what happens on that field because he's amazing with yards after the catch. So I think you let that defense dictate who you're going to go to. You have two outstanding weapons, and we've just talked about this backfield, and if they can get healthy and come back with this full complement of players, what they can do. So I think you let what happens on the field kind of tell you who you're going to go to. You don't try to force the ball to Calvin. You don't try to force the ball to Golden Tate. But if those passes are there, I think you go to them. If that means that Calvin's only going to get 3, maybe 7 touches a game, somewhere in between there, I think maybe then you go to that guy. If Golden Tate's going to get 12 touches a game and Calvin's going to be left out on, with 2, it's what's going to have to happen if they're going to continue to win. This is all about putting up W's. So whatever it tells you to put up W's, that's what you have to do. I think a more interesting question is, does Calvin Johnson hold back Matthew Stafford? Or does Matthew Stafford maybe change the way he approaches a game when Calvin Johnson is in it? Because you've seen it in the last 3 games. He's come out and he's basically played differently. He's helped this team win games. He hasn't basically tried forcing the ball and turned the ball over at key times. When Calvin Johnson is in the game, I really feel like Matt Stafford, that's his guy. He goes to him, he forces the ball to him, and by doing so, he turns the ball over. And maybe he doesn't approach the game during the week as serious as he possibly should, because he knows that he has a genetic freak like Calvin Johnson right out there, who if you can throw the ball up to him, nobody else can outjump him, and nobody else will basically take the ball away from him if it's thrown up high enough. So I think a bigger question, maybe a more poignant question is, does Calvin Johnson affect the way Matt Stafford approaches the game going to the week?
Exactly. And so you and I are kind of thinking the same things, because I was thinking to myself watching these last 2 comebacks, do the Lions come back and win these last 2 games if Calvin Johnson's with us? Because look at the key plays. In both games, Golden Tate had 50-yard plus touchdowns to help us get back into the game. And so what happens is when Calvin's in the game, I think sometimes Matthew Stafford targets him a little bit too much, and he doesn't spread the wealth to the rest of his teammates. You've seen now that Golden Tate can be a big play threat. And so I think in these next 2 weeks, the offense and the offensive coordinator are going to have to look at reshuffling the offense a little bit in terms of the passing game and making sure that Golden Tate doesn't get pushed to the background. Because you've seen now in the last 2 games, he has that ability. You need to target him more, and you need to really accentuate Calvin Johnson's strength. And that is maybe not going so deep to him. Maybe you use him in that 10 to 20 yard range and let him go inside a little bit more. You run those back shoulder passes to the sidelines. You limit the hits that he takes so that he can make it through the rest of the season. Listen, you're not going to deny Calvin Johnson's a freak. He's got size, he's got great hands, and he's got speed. The thing that's most concerning to Lions fans is Matthew Stafford targets him too much and is willing to take chances to throw to Calvin Johnson even when he is potentially double covered. And so that's what has to change, is that Matthew Stafford has to involve others once Calvin comes back and allow Calvin to get in the game and to get into that rhythm. Yeah, you have to utilize him, and there's going to be plays where you notice that there's one-on-one coverage where Calvin Johnson's wide open. That's fine. But what I'm saying is, should the Lions get behind in games in the future, Matthew Stafford can't just look to throw to Calvin Johnson. Otherwise, you're wasting a potentially MVP caliber player in Golden Tate.
You know what I'd like to see? Since we compare this offense to what they run in New Orleans all the time, because Joe Lombardi basically came from that type of offense, I would like to see a guy like Calvin Johnson maybe utilized almost like Jimmy Graham. Stop trying to force Eric Ebron into that Jimmy Graham cardboard cutout. Use Calvin Johnson as your Jimmy Graham. Then use maybe Golden Tate and Eric Ebron as your Marcus Colston, your Kenny Stills. Try to utilize those players maybe that way. It's a little bit outside the box, but you're still kind of using what goes on over there and what has brought success to the Saints, and you're kind of just reshaping other guys, the way that they're utilized and the way that they're plugged in. I think that might bring a little bit more success to this offense, maybe a little bit more balance too, because guys like Golden Tate have to touch the ball. For Eric Ebron to get drafted at 10 overall, he's got to touch the ball. He's got to see it. Otherwise, it was a blown pick. It wasn't worth taking. You could have got somebody to help this defense, which has been outstanding, at 10. So I think maybe trying to reshape some guys' roles and utilizing what they do best is probably going to be the best thing going forward for this team. And you get a week off to kind of maybe analyze it, look at it, and get these guys healthy and get them back into the fold.
Now, cuz what's interesting in the last couple of weeks is the frenetic pace of the offense at the last couple minutes to get these games tied and to get the lead. But I'm curious, do you give more credit in the game versus Atlanta for the win for the Lions offense and their ability to come back? Or do you think that, we faced a horrible team and a horrible head coach in Mike Smith, and the Falcons really shot themselves in the foot. Who do you give more credit to, the Lions or the Falcons really tanking and making the worst possible decisions in the later parts of the game?
Atlanta, I think, is a team that has a lot of talent. I think they just haven't been able to figure it out this year. And I think Mike Smith is a good coach. I just think maybe his voice is going upon deaf ears at this time. That being said, the Lions still had to come out and the Lions still had to make plays. They were the guys who had to go out there. They had to make those large passes to move the ball. Because remember, they were pinned down right around the 12-yard line with about 1:30 left in the game. So they had to advance the ball to get it into Matt Prater's field goal range. And yes, Matt Prater got a do-over with that penalty, but they still had to make the plays. So don't take anything away from those lines. Yes, those Atlanta Falcons are bad. And yes, they do tend to shoot themselves in the foot, but they have a lot of talent on that roster. I just don't think that they're putting it all together. I think they are tuning out Mike Smith. I don't think they're listening to him anymore. I think maybe his voice has gone stale, and I think that as this year advances, don't be surprised if he's swiftly booted out the door.
And then at the same time, Jim Caldwell, we need to look at his decision-making at the end of the game. Were you concerned at all at the fact that he potentially made some really bad mistakes, really poor choices at the end of the game? I mean, calling a run play on 3rd down when you have no timeouts, and you know that your field goal kicker and your kicking situation has been erratic. Had the Falcons not taken the penalty, you could not stop the clock. The clock would have been ticking. You would have basically been forced to rush out your field goal unit to try a long kick. But the Falcons helped us significantly, and the Falcons, really shot themselves in the foot time after time in the 4th quarter. But is this a red flag in terms of Jim Caldwell's ability to clock manage? Because there's a famous YouTube clip of Peyton Manning shaking his head when Jim Caldwell called a timeout in a game versus the Jets. That really upset Manning and has really become famous. And we talked about it when Caldwell was hired. His ability to clock manage has kind of been suspect. Any concerns on your end?
Yeah, I think this is what you're going to get with Caldwell, though. He made a questionable call. Well, I thought it was questionable. He used one of the timeouts, and I was like, why are you using this timeout now? You're burning your last timeout. What's going to happen if you get the ball back, or when you get the ball back? You're not going to leave yourself with any room for error here. So I think this is just something that this is what you get with Jim Caldwell. He's going to blow plays like this. He's going to make questionable decisions. You need to hope that your talent is good enough and that you basically have been tried and true in these types of situations, and that your team knows its 2-minute drill inside and out to basically overcome his shortcomings. This is just what's going to happen. I think a bigger concern for this team is, do they have their best football ahead of them still? They haven't been able to really put together a complete game. These last 2 games against what I guess going into the season are considered very good teams with the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons, these guys haven't showed up for basically whole halves, and then they've had to turn it on late, and they've come out with wins. But I think they need to put a whole complete game together still. I don't think you've seen that since they beat up on a bad Giants team in the very first game of the season. So does this team have its full complement, and does it put together its best football yet?
They're going to have to, because after the bye week, we're at home November 9th versus the Miami Dolphins. Then after the Dolphins, we're away to the Cardinals and the Patriots. So that 3-game stretch is very important. You got to get 1 or 2 wins out of that. And I think that November 16th game versus Arizona is going to be a very telling game when we come out of it as to how we're going to do. Because it looks like, based upon Tom Brady's recent play, that the Lions are going to have a really tough challenge going to New England and getting the win. And then you got to play 4 days later at home versus the Bears. So there is a stretch there potentially that you could fall into some losses back to back. The Lions are going to need to definitely play their best football going forward, because the stretch in the second half of the season is really, really tough. I mean, you're going to play the Dolphins, the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Bears, the Buccaneers, the Vikings, the Bears, and the Packers to end the season. You're 6-2 right now. I would expect that going the rest of the way, based on this schedule, I'm thinking they should, at the very worst, go 4-4. They should finish the year 10-6 and get into the playoffs. But if we're going to be counting on games at the Bears and at the Packers at the end of the year to get in the playoffs, I'm going to be nervous. And so there's a lot of good news with the Lions. You're going to get the majority of your offensive weapons back. The big problem, though, that occurred versus the Falcons, and Ndamukong Suh rolled up on Nick Fairley. He's going to be out for a significant stretch. We didn't get a chance to see what C.J. Mosley would have done in that situation, because I don't know if he was having the time of his life. We don't know if he was hitting on any of the players' girlfriends. We don't know if he was drinking at the pubs. Most likely scenario, he was out past curfew, doing his thing and not following team rules. Dude gets his ass sent home, and we didn't get a chance to see, but coming back, he's going to need to step up his game in order to help that front four, because that front four is one of the reasons why we have the number one defense, and he's gone. Fairley's gone for the foreseeable future. I think, by all accounts, is that he's got a really severely sprained knee, and he's going to be out minimum 4 to 5 weeks, and maybe longer. So I think that the Lions have to play their best football going forward, and it has to start right away after the bye. They can't rest on their laurels.
Yeah, this Nick Fairley injury is going to be something that's going to really test this team, because now you don't have CJ Mosley, so now you got to plug players in. On top of that, what's going to happen to Nick Fairley? This is a knee injury, so he can't really be all that active. He can't be up, he can't be riding a bike, he can't be on a treadmill. There's a lot of things he can't do to stay in shape, and we discussed it going forward, coming out of the preseason. He had issues with his weight, and that was part of the reason why he got demoted coming into this regular season. So him not being active, is he going to eat himself out of a job if he can come back? And then if he can come back, how out of shape will he be? Because there's going to be a lot of things that he can't do for basically a long stretch of time. I mean, this injury, we're talking anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, best case scenario. Jim Caldwell's come out and said that he doesn't even expect him to come back this season. There's a good possibility you won't see him this season. So does he eat himself out of a job if he is able to come back? So how Nick Fairley handles this is going to say a lot about his maturity and how these Lions basically plug players in going forward and utilize what they have is going to be a true test for this team. Because like you said, this front line is basically what kind of gets this defense going. It's what gets them revved up. It allows the linebackers to fly around and cover guys, make plays, hit guys, get to the quarterback. It allows that secondary to look good. And that secondary has come up with big interceptions at certain times this season to help get this team victories. So what's going to happen going forward? It's a giant question mark. And I think it needs a lot of concern, and I think that this coaching staff will have its handful coming up this following week trying to figure out who to put in that place to cover for Nick Fairley.
Cuz, are you willing to say it? Have they shed the label same old Lions?
No, you have to play well for at least a whole season.
Because we've seen it before.
Yeah.
I'm starting to want to say, I think everyone, it's really weird. Everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon and be like, rah, rah, we got the best team. Because we were sitting in the same position last year. Yep. 6-2, we go to Pittsburgh. And we crapped the bed. We went to 6-3, and it went all downhill.
It's one of those things. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And I'm not ready for it yet. I'm not ready to push all my chips in and say, hey, we actually have a legit team here. I'm still on edge. I'm still nervous. I don't ever feel like they're truly out of a game though, which is kind of weird because you want to give them all the credit in the world, but you're very apprehensive because you've been burned too many times before.
Exactly. So let's just do it week by week. We're 6-2. We can enjoy a Lions-free weekend. I am thoroughly going to enjoy watching the games this weekend and just enjoy the rest of the league. And I'm going to watch probably all the games on Sunday and enjoy the NFL and kind of look at how other teams do and what's going on and to see kind of a little bit how the Lions shake up. But I'm kind of getting excited for that Lions-New England game. This coming Sunday, the whole NFL is talking about Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning. But I'm hoping one day we can get to that situation where when it's that week and it's Matthew Stafford versus Tom Brady, our guy can do some damage too. Look what happened when Tom Brady got questioned. They just eked a little bit of criticism, a little bit. Kansas City played New England earlier in the year and they rolled the Patriots. And everyone was like, what's going on with the Patriots? Are they done? Is Tom Brady, does he have one foot out the door? Have you seen what this guy's done in the last couple of weeks? My God, he, if you're a fantasy lover, dropped 50 damn points, 5 touchdowns and 300 plus yards.
Don't ever question a man who wears Ugg boots and has a great beard and a sexy butt chin and bangs Giselle. Don't question Tom Brady. And I'm hoping one day that Matthew Stafford can be as similar to Tom Brady when those two match up, that the hype is that intense when Matthew Stafford rolls into town. You know what would be nice? It'd be nice to have these conversations with Matt Stafford and Andrew Luck, because I think Andrew Luck is that next breed of elite quarterback. So it'd be nice to actually be able to throw Matt Stafford in with that conversation.
Yeah, and right now, I think Matthew Stafford is in that kind of Joe Flacco second tier, eking toward that first tier. We don't want him trending downward. I think he's kind of cemented in that second tier level with the potential going forward of eking into that first tier.
The only thing is he's been eking in that tier for probably 3 years now. He is 26, so he's a young quarterback, but he's been eking in that direction for what feels like forever now.
Stay tuned. If you're a fan of our Twitter page, @DetroitPodcast, you know that we have fans and followers all over the world. And what made the experience watching the Lions in London that much more exciting, we had a follower who's been with us, who's followed us since we started this project at the game. And he tweeted us throughout the whole week, and it really shed light on the experience in that we got to see firsthand what it was like for someone who's at the game at Wembley Stadium and who tweeted us during the game. So after the break, we're going to try to connect with David Smith, our Lions fan from London. And I hope this works out. I hope we get a chance to get his insight and to talk about his in-game experience at Wembley Stadium. After the break, a phone call with our favorite follower, David Smith. Stay tuned.
I'm Megan McCormick out here in Fox Sports LA, and when I'm not sitting out in the sun, I'm listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast.
You got to check out their stuff. I mean, I'm really impressed by it. You guys have probably one of the better ones I've seen in the country.
Wow.
In a short period of time, you've done good work. Look at me kissing your hand.
I know.
All right, Detroit Sports Podcast listeners, we have the chance to have David Smith on the line all the way from London. He had the blessing of being able to experience the Lions Week in London. He went to the game. He went to Wembley Stadium. He was able to go to several events that the Lions attended out there in London. Let's give a warm welcome to David Smith. How are you tonight, David?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me. It's been a hell of a week, sort of roller coaster week, a really fun one in the end, and I think I've just about recovered. I've just got my voice back. I'd lost it Sunday night after screaming too much. I'm thinking about just about come back down now, yeah.
Now, let's first start off with this. How did you become a fan of our Detroit Lions all the way from the UK?
That's a question I get asked a lot. It started out as a lottery. I got into following the NFL about 8-9 years ago, along with a fellow workmate of mine. We both sort of go into it, so it was time to sort of choose a team. Didn't know too much about the teams other than the usual, the Cowboys, the Bears, the Patriots, which I call bandwagon teams because everyone over here follows them and supports them because they've got big histories and they've won before. But I didn't want that. I wanted someone I could start to support from fairly low down who aren't doing too well, and then hopefully follow them all the way to a championship. So I ended up just pulling a name out of a hat, and the name out of the hat was the Detroit Lions. But I wasn't just going to rest on that. I said, okay, that's a start. Got home that night, just flicking through the television, and the movie Beverly Hills Cop was on. And sure enough, one of my favourite films, and it was the scene where Eddie Murphy had his Detroit Lions jacket on. And I thought, wow, well, that's two signs in one day. That's good. So I'm going to look up the city of Detroit, do a bit of research. Found the city. The city's history is very similar to where I grew up in the 70s and 80s in Glasgow, Scotland. It was a very working class, hard working, kind of tough background. Glasgow had its problems as well. It lost the shipbuilding industry, and it suffered a lot back then, similar to kind of how Detroit is now. And but these, like the Glaswegians people, I found the Detroit people as well, they don't give up. They work very hard. And that's the kind of place I want to be associated with. And sure enough, 4 years ago, we took a trip out there. Went to my first game at Ford Field against the Jets. We blew, a 3-touchdown lead, lost in the last minute by a point. Absolutely gutted when I left. I remember walking back to the hotel, and the guy behind the front desk just said to me, it's same old Lions. And that's the first time I'd heard that saying. And I thought, wow. But I couldn't believe how emotionally I felt, really passionate about the team and gutted that we lost. So, and it's went from there. I've just followed them every time now. I've never missed a game, watching it obviously since. And to see them Sunday night here in London, in my own country, was just phenomenal. And they reversed my last experience, and we won by 1 point in the last minute, and it was great. It was great.
What an experience. What events did you get a chance to go out to during the week before the game?
Well, I think the Lions arrived Tuesday morning. Sadly, I didn't know that. I had to work up until Friday. So I missed out on the chance in going to see them down at the University of Surrey, which I believe the they did a Play 60 event with the kids down there, and there was some lucky sod who actually got to meet some of the players down there, and he was on TV, so I was very jealous of that. But they did have a fan rally in Trafalgar Square on Saturday, which they tend to do for most of the London games. I'd say there was about 100,000 people went through there, and that was awesome. It was the Lions players came up on the main stage. There was who was there now? Calvin, Sue, Reggie Bush, Dominic Riola, and even Don Mulbach. Don't know how he got there, but he was there, so it was good to hear them, and the sheer amount of Lions fans that have suddenly appeared in this country. A lot of guys did come over from the States itself. You had some Americans who are probably based over here in the services and the various bases in this country and out Europe, and brand new British fans as well, so it was good to see. And I'd say there was a fair 50-50 Lions, Falcons support there. So it was great, and then the game itself on Sunday was just amazing.
So we get to Wembley Stadium, we all get excited, and we watch the first half. The Lions looked like they were on Detroit time, and they played horrible. And they played absolutely horrible. Your reaction to the first half of that game?
Oh God, jeez. I've been telling my mate who's a Panthers fan, who likes to rub it in that they beat us this year. I was with him and my girlfriend, the three of us were there, and I said, well, we've got the number one defense. Been played solid all year. This Atlanta O-line is non-existent. I said, and the mood in the Lions camp, for all the TV reports and stuff I've seen on Twitter, has all been very positive. They've been relaxed, had a good time, good practices midweek. I thought, this is going to just watch this defense. First drive, Matt Ryan goes down the field, touchdown. I'm thinking, oh God. Well, then it turned up, slow start. We'll get back into it. And then our offense come on. Of course, it's just, as it's been most of the season so far, it seems Stafford can't hit a cow's backside with a banjo at the moment. There was just no blocking, no gaps opening up for the running game. 3 and out, and I think, and that was it. They come on again, second drive, touchdown again, 14-0. And I thought, oh God, here we go. The one time they come and play over here, and I remember you guys saying, I hope we don't go over there and lay an egg. And I thought, they've just laid half a dozen this first half.
I couldn't believe it, and it was a great thank you for tweeting us during the game. Now, an interesting part, and I just told Adam this maybe a half hour ago. I'm like, our fan in London, David, he tweeted me during the game. He's like, would you fans be upset if I had left this game? And I said to myself, what if I had told David to bust out of there? We could have lost a follower, a contributor. He would have been like, what is wrong with you guys? This is unbelievable. And I feel great that I told you to stay and that you were able to witness a great comeback. Aren't you thrilled that I told you to stay for the second half of that game?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I was never leaving no matter what. I felt like it. We were 21-0 down. Stafford had just thrown an interception. That's it. There was no way I was leaving. I'll always stay to the end no matter what. But at the time, you just need to vent some anger, and it's not just that. I'm surrounded by 80,000 other people who all support. There's every single team in the NFL represented. They've all got their own teams, and I've been sick over the years of them talking to me at same old lines. Ever since the 0-16 year, and I thought this is the one time to prove them wrong. And of course we go and do this, and I'm hearing comments from around me. Same old lines. I thought, oh. So I was just venting some anger, and I remember I think it was a Hegdebo. He called out a few of the fans after last week's comeback of the Saints because they left early. So I just thought I'd put it out there with the fans, with the players calling me out if I left now, because I couldn't see any way back. But yeah, and I remember, and you replied to my tweet saying, no, you have to see the full Lions experience. But I think you meant suffer the full Lions experience right at that point, wasn't it? So yeah, I stuck with it, and sure enough, I'm glad I listened to you, because in the end, I believe I did witness a proper ultimate Lions experience, and that was playing till the end. The last minute comeback, the final drive, 1 minute 46, no timeouts. Stafford actually playing immensely for the first time in the whole game, and we go and do it and we win it like that. And I thought that emotional roller coaster of up and down, even at the end with the first missed field goal. My mate said to me, you've got it once, a field goal. I went, listen, man, this is the Lions. We can't kick field goals. And sure enough, they missed the first one. And I'm thinking, Oh, that's it. So 1 minute I was up and then I was down again. I was nearly in tears at one point. And he went, there's a flag on the play, you'll get another shot. And I went, no, they'll just decline it. They'll decline it. Not realising it's a delay of game. They can't decline it. When he knocked in that second attempt, it was, I've honestly never experienced anything like it. The sheer emotion, but my actual voice, I lost the vocal cords. They just got totally strained. I flipped. It was great. It was the best.
Awesome. And I'm so thrilled to be talking to David Smith all the way from London. He experienced the full joy at Wembley Stadium. Now, David, a lot of talk around the States is, can a team be successful and have fan support in London? What's your opinion? Do you think an NFL club could fill a 50 to 60,000 seat stadium week in and week out and support a team?
Do you know, I don't know. I've been thinking about this a lot. I know the NFL definitely want to do it. In fact, last year they were talking about 10 years from now. I honestly think it will happen, but I'm saying 3 to 5 years from now. They're increasing the events, even around London. You know, there's after-show parties now down at various arenas where you can go, free entry, and just watch live NFL. They do that every Sunday night now, and there's various other events, so it is growing. The popularity here itself, it is amazing. More and more people are getting into the sport now. I read a stat the other day. 6 years ago, the American football was the 18th most popular watched sport in this country. And now I believe it's the 5th or the 6th. That's how much it's going. The main broadcaster, Sky Sports, which is sister company to your Fox Sports over there, apparently just in the last year or 2 years, I think it is, their ratings have doubled for viewers of NFL. There is no question there was a huge fan base here. My only concern was how would it work logistically. I suppose maybe they'd have a home stand, 3-4 weeks playing at home, and then when they went to the States and played three weeks, I don't know, in the States. If they can do it that way, I don't know. Fan base wise, would they sell out, say it was Wembley, would they sell out 80,000 every week? I'm not sure. I think in time they will, but I think the current fan base, I think from my point of view, would I support the London franchise? I would support a franchise being in London, but that's not my team. My team's the Detroit Lions, and I ain't never going to switch from that, no matter what. And I believe that I'm not the only one. I believe there's a lot of fans here that, they've got an allegiance to their own team, whoever it may be. I don't think they'll switch. So they're targeting the new market, the new fans getting into the game that don't really have a team yet. And I think in time there will be enough for them, and I think they could make it work, albeit it may take some time initially.
I want to leave you with this question. A lot of talk has been around here about Matthew Stafford. Can he take the next step to become elite like a Tom Brady, like a Peyton Manning, like a Drew Brees? You watched him live. You've seen his ability to stay in games, to make great passes, but you also see some of the mistakes that he makes in terms of interceptions. Do you think Matthew Stafford is our franchise guy and will help us get to the playoffs and have the ultimate success?
That is the one question I hope you weren't going to ask me, because I've been battling this. I've been a Stafford fan from the start. I've got his jerseys. I wore it to Wembley. This year, is he struggling? Is it he's not getting protected from the O-line? Is it the new offense system he can't get used to? I'm not sure he can become an elite like Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or even Aaron Rodgers. I'm not sure he can, but what that guy has got, he's got heart and he will not give up. And yeah, I got a chance to watch the game back last night on television because you don't always see everything in the game. And yeah, he had the interception, and yeah, he had some poor passes and that. But when I look back, the interception he had wasn't his fault. I think it was thrown to Corey Fuller and he slipped on that turf, which, by the way, that Wembley turf, that's something they'd have to address if they're going to have a franchise there, because that's not suited up for, 22, 300-pound guys running up and down, and it cuts up. So, but also I noticed on that final drive when you had 1 minute 46 left, no timeouts. If you look back in the tape, there's so much crowd noise. A lot of it is the Atlanta fans, trying to distract them, but a lot of it is some of the naivety, I suppose, of the new British fans that don't quite fully understand, and they're cheering because they want them to do well, but not realising it's creating noise. And you actually see him; he covers the ears on his helmet, if you like. He can't hear the instruction because the noise is that loud. And I'm not convinced he actually heard what the play was. And I think that first throw to Golden Tate, he improvised that. So that's the kind of quarterback he is and can be. And if he can continue to develop, learn this new system, I think he can be our franchise quarterback. Will he be a Peyton Manning? I don't think so. I hope I'm wrong. But for now, yeah, I think we've got to stick with him.
This interview with David is really one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast. I'm sitting, chatting American football with David Smith, a huge Lions fan, obviously knowledgeable, obviously as passionate as us fans here in the States. David, I can't thank you enough. This interview really is ranks up there in terms of one of my favorites. I love the fact that I get a chance to talk with you all the way across the ocean.
No, listen, thank you guys. It's my pleasure anytime. And I've been following you guys from near enough the start, and what you do, and the show. You bring it across from a fan's point of view, not like a team's point of view or the network point of view. You've got your own opinions, and you speak for the fans, I believe. And it also helps me. I'm into all of the Detroit sports, and I follow the Tigers, the Wings, a little bit of the Pistons, I suppose. Sadly, at the minute, the Wolverines as well. And you're helping me, increase my knowledge in the game, and it makes it 10 times more enjoyable for me. So thank you for what you guys do every week, and keep it going, please.
Every Thursday, new episodes, and this is one of the motivating factors for us. David Smith at Detroit Fan UK. You see him on our Twitter feed. Give him a follow. He's just as knowledgeable and passionate as any fan out there. Thank you, David. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. No problem.
That was a great conversation with David Smith. You can follow him on Twitter at Detroit Fan UK. He's got a strong presence with us. You can follow him, and he definitely tweets us regularly during Lions game. And I want to thank him for sharing his experience from Wembley Stadium last Sunday. Great conversation. That's why we get it. That's why Doc and Jock love doing this podcast. We get a chance to talk with sports fans all over the world, and we get a chance to talk Detroit sports. Cuz, are you ready for another great round of Jock Jams? I got some great questions lined up for you. Are you ready to deliver?
I feel like this is a long-lost friend. I feel like we haven't done this in forever, so hell yeah, I'm ready.
That's right. Jock has strong opinions. He brings the noise, and he's ready. All right, cuz, news was made last week. Joe Maddon was able to opt out of his contract with the Tampa Bay Rays. And did you know he didn't know that he was able to do that? But he had a clause in there, and the clause said that if Friedman had left the Tampa Bay organization, that he had a clause that he was able to opt out of his contract. Do you think the Tigers should at least contact him and to gauge his interest? Because once that announcement was made, a lot of people said, you know what? This reminds me of a situation back in the day. Les Moss was hired by the Detroit Tigers, and Sparky Anderson became available. And so what did the Tigers do? No loyalty. Boom. Brushed Moss to the door, and Sparky Anderson came in, and the rest is history. Could history repeat itself should the Tigers seriously take a look at the former Tampa Bay manager, Joe Maddon?
Joe Maddon is probably one of the smartest managers in Major League Baseball right now. He's got probably one of the top 5 minds for the game. You've seen what his sabermetric style of baseball managing has done, putting his infield shifts on. It's basically revolutionized the game. So I would say, yeah, I think Dave Dombrowski is an idiot for at least not gauging his interest, seeing if he wants to coach next season. Maybe he wants to take a year off. I think you have to make a phone call. I think you owe it to your fans. I think you owe it to your fan base. You owe it to your organization not to go out and get this guy and just have a conversation with him. Sit down, have a cup of coffee with him. If he wants to drink a cup of tea, get him a cup of tea. It doesn't hurt to go out and talk to this man and see where he wants to be, what he wants to do, and if he has any interest in coming and coaching the Detroit Tigers. It would behoove this team and this organization to go out and do something like that. Be on the cutting edge. And yes, there is no loyalty in sports. I know that Joe Maddon doesn't look real great in a set of board shorts like the guy we have here now.
Homie, don't play that.
But you know what? Him hoisting a World Series trophy would look damn good. And I would say you go out there and you ask him if he wants to come here and he wants to take this over.
Yes, you gauge his interest, but I think at the end of the day, Joe Maddon will end up with the Cubs. They got a young team. Theo Epstein and him can get along, can work well together. The early favorite for the team that's going to land Joe Maddon is the Cubs. And so I think that the fans had every right to say, hey, yeah, we want to upgrade our manager. They won't do it. I think it's the right move to make. I don't think they'll do it, though. And I just don't think that Dave Dombrowski is going to want to, really kind of admit and stamp the fact that he made a mistake. So he's going to ride it out with Ausmus, and that's what's going to happen. Considering the Red Wings' unusual schedule to start the season, 2 games against Boston, games against Anaheim, Pittsburgh, and Montreal, all Stanley Cup contenders. Considering the Red Wings' start and the fact that they're playing pretty well, what's your take been on the early start for the Red Wings, given the fact they played so many tough teams and have kind of done a pretty decent job?
I think there's a lot to look forward to with this team. I think scoring is going to be an issue. It looks like it's going to be an issue going forward for the season. They've got a couple guys and kind of hacking it out and just kind of looking at things. It looks like they might have a few 20-goal scorers, which I think is a giant bonus for this team because last year they didn't have that. But it still looks like scoring is going to be one of those things that's a little bit arduous for this team. I mean, right now they're in the bottom third of the league for scoring per game, and their power play has been dried up, disappeared. It's not here. Use any adjective you want to describe it. It's not here. However, the penalty kill looks outstanding, and the goaltending looks very good. So I think they're going to be in a lot of close games, and I think scoring is going to be a big issue for this team going forward. I think there's a lot of things to be excited for with this team, though. Those young kids, they look talented. They look like they're going to carry this team, and that's a giant plus going forward. Other than that, it's been really weird the way this schedule has kind of worked out. You'll sit there and you'll play a game here, you'll have a day off, play another game, then you got 4 days off. The early part of the schedule is kind of crappy because you can't really get into a flow of anything. You play a few games here and there, and then you get long stretches off, then you come back and you play a few games here, and you get some more long stretches off. It's just kind of, as a fan, it's very taxing to try to get into the flow of what's going on with this season. But I think there's a lot of positives going forward.
All right, cuz, did you hear the story of what happened out there in Alabama? The Boosters paid off Nick Saban's $3.1 million house. And while it was well within the rules, because it's not all that unusual in the world for universities to provide the housing. Do you think that that is something that should be allowed in college football for boosters to be able to potentially bring in big level coaches by paying off their houses, or by boosters, providing the extra incentive for a head coach?
Everything at the NCAA comes down on these kids for doing, and then you sit there and you allow the coach to basically get money stuffed in your pocket. I mean, that's just like somebody cutting him a $3.1 million check, you say, for his house? I mean, that seems kind of ridiculous. I mean, that guy is already the highest paid college coach in all of the NCAA. What do you need boosters to basically pay your house off for? You make almost $10 million a year as a coach, maybe more. So dude, that seems like it's just flawed theory by the NCAA. More flawed theory by the NCAA. It's bad enough they already do everything ass backwards with the NCAA as it is. So I guess this is just par for the course. Let me give you the details. This is just kind of a head scratcher.
Yeah, according to the report from AL.com, the Crimson Tide Foundation paid off Saban's $3.1 million home in January 2013, even though the organization was under no obligation to do so. They bought the 8,700 square foot home in 2007. They continue living there, with the foundation picking up the tab for property taxes each year. So basically, you got a coach who's making big time money. He's getting an extra incentive from the boosters. Do you think that's something that Michigan should do, potentially, to get a really big coach? Listen, there's a nice big house there on Lakeshore Drive that's for sale, I hear, for in the neighborhood of $15 million. Maybe the Dolphins owner should drop some cash. What's the best option there? Hey, I'll give you a big, huge Art Van. The home belongs to, I think, Art Van. Pay off the home, slot them right there on Lakeshore Drive. It's going to be a commute, but hey, Michigan's got to do what they got to do. But yeah, it's an interesting thought that the boosters paid off his home and are paying his tax. He's living for free and making $7 million a year.
Whatever you got to do
I ain't
to
leaving.
become relevant as a Michigan, to bring Michigan's program back to relevance, I'm for it. So yeah, I mean, if you got to do that, go ahead and knock yourself out. It just doesn't make sense, because you sit there and you basically chastise these kids who bring all this money in for the program, and that basically these boosters help fund, and then you're just going to sit there and you're going to take this money and you're just going to funnel it right back into the coach and pay for his housing, and he's already getting a ridiculous salary. I mean, if you go and you do the research and you look and you see how much Nick Saban actually makes as opposed to all these other coaches, it's unbelievable because he makes so much more than just about everybody else. That's crazy. And you said it's like an 8,000 square foot home. I mean, that's a damn mansion. You could basically put 8 other people's homes in there. You know, you basically go driving down any block in the state of Michigan, you could basically pick up their houses and basically seat 6 to 8 of them right there in his property. So that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable.
It's well within the rules. According to the Crimson Tide website, it's a nonprofit group whose mission is to work with the UA Athletic Department by raising private funds and providing necessary resources to achieve success. Those funds are distributed for everything from scholarships to coaching salaries to athletic-related construction projects. So it's well within the rules, and the NCAA told the website, al.com, that a coach's compensation is allowed to come from a university foundation.
That strikes me as just being wrong. I mean, there's no two other ways I can really put this.
It's just basically rich getting richer,
exactly,
and the gap will widen from the teams that are elite to the teams that aren't.
Dude, just how the NCAA operates, man. You sit there, Alabama will get popped for cheating, and then freaking Youngstown State will get hit with like a 3-year ban on playing in a bowl game. It makes absolutely no sense the way they operate.
Great job on another round of Jock Jams. Stay tuned. We are going to hit on the epic Michigan State thumping of the University of Michigan last Saturday. Stay with us.
And one other thank you I should give to the thousands of players that we've been able to touch. Go Blue. We understand what Michigan football means and what Michigan football is. We will always be about the team at Michigan. This is never going to be about Brady Hoke. This is about a football program. This is about a team and 42 Big Ten championships. And that's what this program is going to be about. And the things that we believe in the foundation is going to be our character. The character of the guys on the staff, the character of the kids in the program, and everybody who touches those kids on a daily basis.
Oh, we don't play that.
Go Blue. Because character wins in life, and character wins on the football field. The character teams are the ones who play together, the ones who stay together, the ones who are accountable to each other. And we're going to be a program that is going to be accountable. We're going to have a foundation of toughness, because I don't care what position you play, this is a tough man's game. Doesn't matter if you're the holder on the field goal. You have to be mentally tough. You have to be physically tough, because that's the way a game of football is played. And that will be part of the philosophy. We are going to be a team that competes with a high degree of effort every time we take the field. When we run out on the practice field, we're going to compete. And we're going to compete every day, because you get better when you compete. And that's what we're going to do as a football team. Accountability and respect. We're going to respect every guy in this program. We're going to respect every person on this campus. We're going to respect everybody in the community. And we're going to respect the tradition of the University of Michigan and its football program. Brady Hoke touches those kids on a daily basis. Go Blue.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for downloading another episode of the Detroit Sports Podcast. We appreciate greatly those who follow us and download our podcast every week. Thank you so much for the continued support. Other ways you can support us: contribute via the PayPal every single month. You can visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Click through the Amazon banners. Click through the banner links that are located throughout the website. We greatly appreciate it. Visit our website for all things related to Detroit sports, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. And we want you to also support those who support us. So always check out our friends at the Detroit Sports Nation. Their website is great. They have passionate writers that are available. DetroitSportsNation.com. Support those that support us. Last weekend, cuz I don't even know if it's even fun anymore to discuss the Michigan State rivalry, because for Michigan State, it's just another game on the schedule where we dominate. Michigan State, from the opening drive, Connor Cook smashed the defender from Michigan. on our way to our opening touchdown drive. Michigan State stumbled early on the rest of the way in that first half, but in the second half, they pulled away and they dominated. Michigan, with 2 weeks off, didn't have any answers, really, other than trying one failed trick, flea flicker that was ridiculous. Michigan State rolled Michigan. They did what they had to do, and it's really sad that the talking point after the game is the idiotic move by the University of Michigan players by driving a stake into the ground at Spartan Stadium. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's false bravado, trying any way necessary to hype themselves up for a game that in and of itself doesn't need that. It's a rivalry game. That's what you're going to do. Thank you, Michigan. You just basically provided the best coach in the Big Ten more ammunition for the next 5 years. That video will be replayed week in, week out, every week that Michigan State plays Michigan. And you just added fuel to the fire. You thought the little brother comment by Mike Hart was disrespectful. Mark D'Antonio is a genius at motivating his players, and he will use that for years to come. Michigan State went in there, handled their business. Michigan is in shambles and really cemented that Brady Hoke will be removed at the end of the year, and you got to start over.
Yeah, I really don't even want to talk about this. It hurts to talk about, seriously. Michigan had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. You come in, you have no energy, you look flat, you can't do anything on offense. Your defense basically can't stop these guys. I mean, you have a quarterback basically blowing guys up at the 4-yard line. What else can you really say about this? There was no need to come in, no need to sit there and plant what looked like a railroad spike in the middle of Michigan State's turf. There was no need for it. And then you guys all sit there and you dance around and you get all hyped and you're like, yeah, way to go. Was it Joe Bolden? Who the hell is this guy? Does he even play? I mean, you never even heard of Joe Bolden's name until this incident. So who are you to go and do this? Just sit down and be quiet. You got guys like Devin Gardner looking like garbage. You got guys like Jabril Peppers, who was supposed to be this all-American player who is always hurt. You can't contribute if you're not on the field. And this guy's basically done for the year. I mean, this team's in just disarray. And you've got Brady Hoke coming out apologizing for it. So not only does your program look bad because you sat there and you went and you disrespected your rival, they basically laid the wood to you. They basically took you out and beat you like you were their little brother. Essentially is what exactly happened. How's that shoe feel, Michigan? It fits. It's small. It's snug, isn't it? It hurts. And you got Brady Hoke coming out now saying, well, I kind of knew about it, but I didn't really know about it. But I knew about it, and, we shouldn't have done it, and it was really bad, and I'm kind of sorry for my program looking foolish. That was the worst apology ever. Why are you even apologizing for it? It's your rival. You should have said yeah, we did it. Would I have taken it back? Probably not. Should we have done it? No. But whatever. It's the way it is. Our guys are going to come in there and they're going to give their best effort. Those guys looked awful. You had 2 weeks to try to muster something, to do something, and you did nothing. You gave no effort. You looked horrible. I think it is now basically laid out there. Hoke is gone. This team isn't even playing for him anymore. None of these guys want to be there and play for him. Nobody's listening to him. There's nothing left. There is nothing left. He's gone. He has to be gone. And if he is brought back, that's just more condemnation on this Michigan program and how low it has fallen. It's a disaster of a program.
Exactly. And here's the thing. The bully beat you down, and then you apologize to the bully for putting the wood to you. Listen, the apology should have just remained private. He should have just called D'Antonio. He didn't have to make a public comment because that really made him look really bad. His reaction to this whole Steakgate situation is just another example of the idiocy that's coming out of Ann Arbor. You come out, and they ask you about it, and you say, I'm aware of it, but I wasn't really fully aware of it. And then you come out the next day and apologize and say that, yeah, you kind of you understood what's going on. It just shows you don't have a control of your program, you don't have control of your players, and you don't understand how to run a program like Michigan. And it just really sucks for the rivalry in that Michigan has fallen so low that it's not a game, it's not competitive. The strategy that Michigan tried to utilize was snuffed out time and time again by Michigan State. It was like Michigan State had the extra week. They knew what was coming. Michigan State just a better team all around. But I think the biggest mistake that Hoke made was rolling into that game with Devin Gardner. You had an extra week. I think you could have added that wrinkle by starting Shane Morris and even at the very least running even snaps with him. It's obvious there needs to be accountability. And with the offensive woes, all the blame needs to go to Devin Gardner. He has not even come close to mastering that offense. And you have a guy in Shane Morris. What does it say that Shane Morris can't beat out Devin Gardner, who arguably is the worst quarterback that Michigan has ever had? John Navarre is sitting out there wherever, if he's on the West Coast or wherever he is, he's sitting back with his feet up going, whew, my name might not be synonymous with the worst quarterback anymore, because Devin Gardner is, I think, the worst quarterback that Michigan has produced at that program. You rolled into that game with Devin Gardner. Look what he did. He turned the ball over, same old Devin Gardner. Michigan has only scored one touchdown since 2011 in this series. 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. One touchdown, and then you got your offensive coordinator doing the happy dance over there like you won the game. So all in all, the situation at Michigan is in dire straits. I'm just hoping, for your guys' sake, that when Hoke is dismissed, they don't say Coach Nussmeier's the new guy. If he's the new guy, I'm going to come on here and just laugh for 5 minutes, because that guy will not, I don't care about his reputation, that guy will not lead your program. So you got to wipe the clay slate and start over. And because, unfortunately, it's 2014, Michigan is no quick fix. You could get Nick Saban himself. It will not be a quick fix, because you're going to need to wipe the slate clean. This talent that's littered the Michigan football field is nowhere near the caliber that it needs to be to compete in the Big Ten. So you're looking at another 3 to 5 years before you're even close to relevant. Wow, how the mighty have fallen. And it all started with Mike Hart and that stupid comment, and it's carried over, and we got more ammunition. Michigan State's looking promising. It's all good for Michigan State. We just got to try to find a way to get into that Final Four.
The worst part is every week that you're losing games this way and every week that you're getting embarrassed, you have more guys who are coming out and decommitting from this program. You've got 4 and 5 star guys who are saying, yeah, no thanks, I'm going somewhere else. I mean, it's so bad that you basically, your recruiting class that you had basically penciled in for the next 2 seasons has just evaporated. You basically have me and you going out there with helmets on. Let's go play football. Let's do it. We're no big-time athletes here. We're just 2 schmucks who like to sit there with a microphone and talk about this crap.
No, it just sucks for the players, because imagine had Devin Funchess gone to Michigan State. What would his development have been?
Well, he'd be a stud.
What would happen
if Gardner? You could pencil him into the NFL right now.
Exactly. And so you really feel bad for the players, because they went to Michigan hoping that they could improve and hoping that they'd get in a good experience. This has to be the worst experience for Devin Gardner, going through his whole career and not beating Michigan State.
The worst part is D'Antonio came out and basically said it best. This is systemic of the program. This is what happens in this program, and it all filters down. If you compare the 2 programs, you would see that Michigan State, basically, D'Antonio has an ironclad grip on that program. If he wants them riled up, they're feverish and they're ravenous and they're ready to rip your head off. All right. If he wants them cooled down and tempered, he's got that going on for him too. They look like ice cubes. If you look at what Brady Hoke has, he has zero control over this program. He basically came out and said as much in his apology. It's just a tale of 2 programs basically going the opposite way. One is going up and one is basically sunk to the lowest of the low and is basically sitting in mud at the bottom of a lake.
And Michigan State, the good luck, the good fortune keeps on rolling. Ohio State's running back sprained MCL, likely to miss the matchup versus the Spartans. So Ohio State comes to East Lansing in the marquee matchup. So I think that favors Michigan State. It just really stinks, though, in that I have to say we need Michigan's program to get back on track in order to help a team like Michigan State, when we have a successful season, to have a higher ranking in the committee poll. Because right now, a win versus Michigan doesn't mean squat. It's probably moves the needle like 0.0001. And some people are saying, damn, it took you that long to break the game open? It should have been really a 69-11 game. Unfortunately, Michigan has fallen, and it just really hurts the Big Ten all around. So, as much as I enjoy laughing at Michigan, as much as every game that rolls around is enjoyable, no, we need Michigan to compete to make the football game enjoyable and to bring back the rivalry, because right now it's nowhere near a significant rivalry, and Michigan is just in a major, major crisis right now, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens at the end of this season.
I think the biggest concern here for the Big Ten and for a powerhouse like Michigan State is the fact that they haven't put up and played a complete game. They're like these Detroit Lions where they have brief moments where you're just kind of scratching your head like, what are they doing? Why are they fumbling around out there? They haven't put together a complete game. Connor Cook hasn't played a real solid game yet they still are able to win and churn out victories. I think this game upcoming against Ohio State in 2 weeks, I think this Michigan State team has to put together a solid game plan and they have to execute it to the 9 because they can't come in and they can't basically have a half or they can't have a quarter where they just kind of lay a dud. They need to come out and they need to play like these animals that we know that they can be. And I think that will help turn around maybe this perspective about this Big Ten maybe being soft. If they can go in and they can beat up on this Ohio State team and just kind of take it to Ohio State, I think they got a real good chance of being in that national playoff picture.
All right, cuz it's that time of the week for the NFL Pick'em Challenge. Last week we didn't do that good. We only got the Lions game correctly and barely. We could have went over with 4 picks, both of us, but we got the Lions game correct. And
this is what happens when you hitch your wagons to that Dallas Cowboys team. Just blows up in your face.
Yeah. You figure Dallas rolling on offense at home. Colt McCoy, no-name quarterback. He goes in there, wins in overtime. Okay. Good job. Good job, us. Good job, Doc and Jock. Let's try to redeem ourselves. The Doc is leading 21-19.
Boo. Sorry.
All right. With my first pick, I have to ride the hot hand. I don't know how successful I'm going to be, but Pittsburgh, behind the arm of Ben Roethlisberger, is on fire. They're going to be at home Sunday night versus the Baltimore Ravens. With my first pick, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to play a great game in the rivalry game, and I got Pittsburgh over Baltimore.
I'm going to stick with that same game, but I'm going completely opposite of you. Pittsburgh has really shown nothing this year, besides playing good for a few brief moments at times. I don't know how they sat there and they laid so many points on that Indianapolis Colts team, but I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens. They are so upset after dropping that game to the Cincinnati Bengals this past week. They're going to come in, they're going to go to Pittsburgh, and they're going to get a victory over Ben Roethlisberger and those Pittsburgh Steelers.
Washington, coming off of a great win, has some momentum. McCoy is managing the game well. They have some great weapons. I think their talent is better than the Vikings. So with my second pick, I got the Washington Redskins over the Vikings.
All right, staying with that division, I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals over the Jacksonville Jaguars in Cincinnati. Cincinnati's rolling. I know they don't have A.J. Green, but Andy Dalton looks like he's got things figured out. That defense is potent and powerful. I don't trust Jacksonville whatsoever, so I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals over the Jacksonville Jags.
We are playing a game here, so I would have to agree. The Bengals are going to destroy the Jaguars. I just think that Jacksonville right now is just, that's why it's tough in this league to start a rookie quarterback. Bortles struggled, threw a lot of interceptions last week, and to go into Cincinnati and to get a win, not happening. So with my third pick, I'm taking the Bengals over the Jaguars.
With my third pick, I'm taking the Indianapolis Colts, laying 3 over the New York G-Men. I'm basically going to hop aboard your train because you basically roll Andrew Luck everywhere you go, and you love you some luck. So I'm going to go with Luck. Giving up 3 points. I think they sit there, they go into New York, and I think they beat the tar out of these Giants.
Okay, so the Lions have a bye week. We will take it easy and not make a fourth pick. We'll just do 3 picks this week and save ourselves the embarrassment of getting another one wrong. So those are your 3 picks. I got mine. Good luck to you. I'm leading 21-19 in the NFL Pick'em Challenge. All right, cuz another great podcast. Episode 64 is in the books. Another great podcast for the Jock Adam Strozinski. I am the Doc John Macaroon. Thank you for downloading. Tell as many people as you can. Listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast.
Go Wings. You gave no effort. You looked horrible.
Brady Hoke touches those kids on a daily basis. Go Blue.